I think maritime developments in the Middle East are significant and have been in the past year, not only because of what they might say about regional developments, but more broadly in terms of how the maritime environment will develop around the world, more contested waterways. We've seen that in the Eastern Mediterranean. You had the very high-profile deployment of the Russian aircraft carrier, the Admiral Kuznetsov, which brings some extra capability to what the Russians are doing in Syria. But more broadly, the Russians are operating there in the Eastern Mediterranean much more intensively than they have done in the past. It makes it a more crowded waterway. You've got the Americans operating there as well, and the French. So all that represents a challenge. There are three key strategic maritime choke points in the region: the Suez Canal, the Bab el-Mandab Strait, and the Strait of Hormuz. Two of those have seen significant activity in the last year. In the Bab el-Mandab Strait, we've seen the use of anti-ship missiles from the shore by Houthi rebels in Yemen. One attack devastated a UAE-operated high-speed transport ship. There were some unsuccessful attacks on US Navy ships. They were unsuccessful, but they were a warning signal that the proliferation of that type of weaponry is going on, and it will represent more of a challenge for traditional navies trying to protect shipping close to shore. Those navies are going to have to think hard about the extent to which they can be sure of what level of capability they have to face greater threats of that nature in the future. And then around the Strait of Hormuz and into the Gulf, there's been an ebb and flow of tensions between the US Navy and the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps Navy over the years. There's been a blip this year with the capture of US Navy personnel, admittedly only briefly at the beginning of the year, but also some tense close encounters. The Americans fired some warning shots on occasions. It might just be another blip, but it might also be a signal of the Iranians trying to raise the bar a bit in terms of testing the Americans and how the Americans respond to that. And that has implications not just in the Gulf, but also more generally as new actors in the maritime domain test the status quo of maritime operations, and how traditional navies respond to that without escalating tensions will be key in the future.